On this episode of Doing the Most, we're making pear wine.
Homemade brews and various how-tos, everything from meat to roast, bake creation, fermentation, inebriation, doing the most.
This video is the start of a 12 months of wine series that we're doing here on Doing the Most. And our first video up is pear wine. These recipes come from Jack Keller's book, Home Winemaking. May he rest in peace. Jack kind of taught me everything I know about fermentation. I learned so much from his website when I got started winemaking over a decade ago, and I've referred to his recipes uncountable times over the years when I've needed advice on fruit quantities or spice quantities or when to add what. And Jack was really a pioneer in the home winemaking space, really a brilliant and obviously award-winning winemaker who knew a lot, tested a lot, and trialed a lot to make sure that his recipes really were doing the most and repeatable. And so to take inspiration for this challenge of doing 12 months of wines, it made sense to go back to my home winemaking roots and brew up some of Jack's recipes. And big shout out to my friends over at Homebrew Ohio who sponsored this video series. They provided some of the gear that you're gonna see featured in these videos. For any of the stuff that you see in this video that you don't have, there's probably a link in the description to where you can pick it up at Homebrew Ohio. Big shout out and huge thanks to Homebrew Ohio. And if you don't know what a piece of equipment or a supply is, like a bottling wand or an auto siphon or Starzan, we've got a whole video series. You should check that out. It's called So You Want to Brew, and it walks you through every single thing you could possibly need to know to get started homebrewing. A link to that will be in the description. So in this video, we're doing pear wine, and some folks will call pear wine a perry. Usually perry is reserved for pear wines that are lower alcohol content, in that realm of like a cider, where you'll have apple wine or you have cider. Here we've got pear wine instead of perry. It's a little bit higher alcohol. One of the things that I'm doing with Jack's recipe in order to up the complexity a little bit is I chose a couple of different kinds of pears. I tend to find that with both apples and with pears, any of the fruits in that pome family of fruits, that it's beneficial to use a variety of different kinds. So that way it kind of adds into the complexity of the final product rather than just being like one fruit note. You're hitting kind of various different notes that all kind of play in harmony together. And for pears, that might be choosing some sweet pears, some tart pears, some more tannic pears, kind of run the gamut of what pear can be. So I don't remember the types of pears that I chose here, but one was more of a tart pear and one was more of a sweet pear, and we're using them in equal quantities in this recipe. And my goal with the series is not really to riff on Jack's recipes, it's really to brew them by the book, and then we'll talk about ways we might have changed the balance wheel a little bit at the end. So let's take a look at Jack's recipe.
The ingredients for this pear wine are 5 pounds of pears, 1 pound, 6 ounces of very fine granulated sugar, water to 1 gallon, 1 1/4 teaspoon of powdered pectic enzyme, 1/8 teaspoon of wine tannin, 1 teaspoon of yeast nutrient, and EC 1118 yeast.
So one thing about Jack's recipes, and you'll hear it time and again in this series, is that they don't always nail a perfect 1 gallon on the other end of things. So my advice in that realm would be to have maybe like a 3/4 gallon container that you're racking into secondary, or that you up the percentage of everything by about 25 to 30%, so you start out with just a little bit more than what you're going to transfer to secondary, so that way you do have a gallon on the other end. It's a small critique of Jack's recipes, but by and large, all of these are going into bottles pretty quick, so I didn't worry too much about oxidization, especially with this pear, because it, as you'll see, went right into bottles.
And here are our pears. With everything laid out and ready to go, we are prepared to get started. So first off, we're going to bring some water to a boil. And then we begin the arduous task of coring and chopping our pears. I'm using a teaspoon measuring spoon here to scoop the core out of the pear and then just roughly chopping them up. Once our water is up to a boil, we'll cut the heat and add our sugar. This just helps the sugar to dissolve. Stir, stir, stir. Here I'm just using a sanitized chopstick to stir. And then our pears go into our sanitized fermentation bucket. We're using a 2-gallon bucket here, even though this is a 1-gallon recipe, because we've just got so much fruit, it wouldn't make any sense to put this into a demijohn or carboy. Look at all that pretty fruit. Then our wine tannin goes in. Then our yeast nutrient goes in. And then we pour that hot sugar syrup right over the top of those pears. Add a little bit more water to bring that up to the gallon mark. Stir, stir, stir. And then our pectic enzyme goes in once that's cooled down. Next up, we'll be pitching our yeast. In this case, it is a champagne yeast called EC1118. It's a nice, fast fermenting wine yeast. Lid goes on. And it's always important to make quick notes about what is inside that bucket. And then our airlock goes on. That airlock is full of Starsan sanitizer. Every day for the next few days, we'll be popping the top on that and giving it a little bit of a stir to break up the fruit cap. So just gently remove the lid, use a sanitized spoon or chopstick to stir it up just to make sure that the top of that fruit cap doesn't dry out and, no moldy little friends start growing on there. And you'll be punching that fruit cap for at least the first week, maybe into the second week. You do want to stop before fermentation is done, just to make sure you have a nice CO2 blanket in there to help protect it from the outside air. Once all fermentation activity has seemingly ceased, we'll let the yeast continue to clean up after themselves for about a week, and then rack it off to secondary.
So when I went to rack this off into secondary, I opened the bucket and realized it was crystal clear. So I decided I would bottle it instead of doing a rest in secondary, just so that way it's already in the bottle, it's protected. I'm not really concerned about the effects of bulk aging versus bottle aging with such a small quantity.
We got right at 6 12-ounce bottles out of this batch.
All right, Jack Keller's Pear Wine. As you saw from the video, it's a relatively simple recipe. It's fairly straightforward, pretty big fruit load for a gallon of wine. And there wasn't a lot of nutrient in there. It calls for 1 teaspoon of yeast nutrient. For this, it doesn't specify, so we use diammonium phosphate. I think you could easily use Fermade O as a replacement for that. But a really simple recipe, and Jack's recipes are created to be kind of self-balancing. He's done the balancing work for us, at least for his palate. So we'll do a quick tasting here and maybe talk a little bit about what we might do differently. And look at that color. It's like a nice, almost rosé, rose gold kind of color. So, it's a bit young yet, but the pear really does come through. It's like a nice, it drinks like a white wine with just a nice breath of pear coming in on the exhale. It's interesting, the initial sip, it feels thin. You drink it, you just gulp it right down, no problem. But then as it rests on your tongue and as you exhale, you get that nice grippy tannin. It's almost like the wine is kind of holding on a little bit, saying, hold on, taste me just a little bit longer. on its way out on your exhale. I do think that a little bit of back sweetening would help enhance some of those pear flavors. In this series, we're going to be leaving all of Jack's recipes dry. No back sweetening on anything. But I do think that either stabilizing and back sweetening with sugar or honey, or using a non-fermentable sweetener like erythritol, could bring out some of that pear character out just a little bit more. And Jack makes recommendations for what you might do in that regard. However, for a youthful pear wine like this, it's really not too green or too dry for my palate. The more it breathes and opens up, the more body you sense in it, and definitely the more of that like perceived sweetness you feel kind of down the sides of your tongue. So decanting this wine or leaving your glass to breathe for a few minutes before you drink it is probably recommended. This, I think, turned out really nicely. Things that I would change is probably I would follow one of Jack's pieces of advice to add a banana or a banana peel to the initial fermentation to help up the body. The tannin structure is nice, but there could be a soft tannin in there too that kind of fleshes out the beginning of that taste where it does feel a little bit watery at the beginning. I do think I would back sweeten this slightly, maybe to 1.005 or 1.010, just enough, and probably with honey, honestly, to kind of help cascade that flavor across the palate just a little bit more. Again, a big thanks to Homebrew Ohio for their support behind this video. Check out the links in the description to where you can get any of the gear that you saw in this video today. And also check out the link in the description to where you can get a copy of Jack's home winemaking book. It's an incredible guide, really beautiful book, and just chock full of information about fermentation. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitch and join our Discord server where there are over 1,000 other brilliant homebrewers that are waiting to help you or cheer you on in your brewing adventure. Check that out at discord.doingthemost.org. And of course, you can subscribe to this channel very easily by clicking the subscribe button right below this video. Shout out to Jack Keller. This one's for you, buddy. And happy brewing. Stay safe, stay well.